welcome to AA Beyond Belief, our Friday live stream. This is John, and I am here with Angela from Boise, Idaho. How you doing, Angela?
I'm doing well, John. Thank you for asking.
Stream. This is John, and I am here. That's me.
That is you. My phone just turned itself on because it likes to do that.
Oh God, I sound weird.
I know. I do as well.
So who's out there? We've got Angela B. She's out there, and Bubble Blondes, of course. Bree, how you doing, Bree? And Anchor and Gilbert and Joe C. and Joe M. Bubble Blondes. Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Anyway, there you go. So, oh yeah, what's happening this weekend? The emotional sobriety seminar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'll tell you about it. It's going to be on January 31st at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it features the one and only Joe C. And he's going to be talking about sober enough, an antidote to perfectionism. And it says here that registration is not required. And now it's really nice to have the names here so I don't have to go by memory. But, you know, the panel includes the Dr. Alan Berger, PhD, the doctor whose name I could not remember last week for whatever reason. And then world-renowned author Maria Hornbacher, and then John R., who acts as the moderator and was actually one of the founding members of the Free Thinkers Living Sober group there in Valley Verde, Arizona.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be fun. I have been to all of them because I've been a stagehand, and I guess I will be a stagehand again this weekend. So
excellent.
They're really good. I've enjoyed every one of them, and I think that everyone else has as well.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
So I'm going to be off work next week.
Woohoo!
Yeah, but I'm going to be doing something. I told you about this. I'm going to be taking some training from the state of Missouri to be they call it a peer support specialist. And for people in recovery, and they sent me all the training material, and it's amazing, Angela. It's like let me get this thing. It's like huge, but it's going to go from like 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And and it's going to be five days, Monday through Friday, and they keep you pretty busy. And then after you're done with the training, you take an exam, and you have a proctor to make sure you don't cheat.
Okay.
And then after you do that, you get these credentials to be a peer support specialist. Now, what I'm going to do with that, I do not know, but it'll take me down a road to figure out what I want to do, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, and it gives you a lot of information on, you know, probably more secular options as well as probably more, you know, religious options in your area, but just where the state is regarding substance abuse use. Disorder, whichever thing they're going to call it. So yeah, I think that's cool. I'm excited to hear about it. Did they send you a binder? Do you have a big binder?
Yes, they sent me
yes.
It's huge, gigantic.
I love binders.
It's huge, gigantic. It's just got all kinds of stuff. They sent some nice graphics. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because, you know, I think they're doing a pretty good job. And I can't say that Missouri has invented this. I think that they borrowed this information from another state that kind of got this thing started. And I can't remember what state that was, but they address recovery in all aspects and all kinds of different types of addictions and so forth. And so I'm looking forward to what I'm going to learn. So that'll be fun. Yeah.
So next week you'll come back and share with us.
Yeah.
All your stuff, because you'll be getting done like right at the time you do the podcast. So if it's 8 to 5, so you'll be rushing home. Will you make it back in time?
Yeah, I'll be here. Well, it's going to be all done here on Zoom. So you're going to be.
That's right.
Yes.
I was thinking an alternative reality where you'd actually be sitting in the room.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'll be here. Now I do have a proctor, you know, who will be watching me on Zoom, which is kind of weird. They prefer the proctor to actually be in the room with me, but they said that because of COVID, it's okay for the proctor to watch me on Zoom. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. Wow. I guess I'll just have some camera on me that's looking at me so she can watch me and make sure I'm not, you know, looking things up on Google or whatever.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, Joe says he took the same course for the heck of it. Yeah, same here, Joe. Just kind of for the heck of it, just to see, you know, I don't know what I want to do with that, you know, that information. But, you know, when I took the Smart Recovery training, it really got me interested in recovery outside of what I've learned and experienced in Alcoholics Anonymous. I just thought I'd
Mhm.
learn more. And of course, because I've been in AA for so long, almost anything that has to do with recovery, I always relate it back to AA. And that's a habit I
Yeah.
really want to break and just
Right.
say, this is something that stands on its own. This is something, so yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. But something
Yeah.
else happened that was kind of weird today, Angela, that in
Okay.
relation to this. So
One of
my
the
boss,
binders didn't have a sticky on it, or you
no,
had to do had to
well,
do your own label. You
I
have
asked
your own
my
label maker, right?
I don't. But my I asked my boss for the week off like a long time ago. And she said, sure, no
Uh-huh.
problem. And then so we were talking today and she said, well, I hope you enjoy what you do, whatever it is that you're gonna do, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm tired of living a secret life. Like I'm gonna go do something and not nobody knows, right? So I told
Yeah.
her, I said, well, what I'm doing, Jan, I'm going to be taking this course, blah, blah, blah. And she thought it was great. So that was like the first
Nice.
time, that's the first time I ever came out as a person in recovery at the place where I work. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So,
Well, that's
it's
kind
not,
of cool.
yeah, yeah. I felt good. It's just like, I don't know. It's not like it's so important, but it just felt good to let someone know me a little bit better,
Yeah.
a little bit, because she didn't know anything about me other than, I'm a guy who lives here and works and, you know.
Right.
So anyway, enough
Well,
about me.
that's cool. Yeah. Well, and if you decide to do something with that, when you retire, you can, possibly use her as a reference on you
Yeah,
being a good person to hire for a recovery coach.
that's
So
right.
that's kind of
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about it. Oh, some comments in there. Jackie says that in Maryland they have a really good. They're really good at including MAT, medically assisted treatment. Same here, Jackie. I was looking through the materials and they were talking about medication and recovery.
Mm-hmm.
They were also did a little bit of harm reduction. It looks
Mm,
like they're going to talk about a little bit,
yeah.
and of course those things apply to different people in different circumstances.
Right.
So I'm just really excited about it. Anchor says, how much a smart recovery or what you learn contradicts AA.
Mhm.
Anchor, here's one thing I know about. I'm gonna preface this to say that I could be wrong,
Okay.
but the impression that I got from Smart is that um, when it comes to relapse, they distinguish between a full blown relapse and a slip.
Mm,
So in AA, if you go out for a night of drinking or whatever, you drink for a night, you've relapsed.
yeah.
It's that clear.
Hmm.
Whereas in Smart, there seems to be a bit of a difference where if you don't, a full blown relapse is when you fall into the
The same
pattern,
pattern. Yeah.
yes, for an extended period of time, and so in other words, they aren't as strict, I guess, in their outlook on a slip.
Hmm.
So I think that's good because sometimes in AA we feel like if we have a slip, everything starts over. You have to
Well, for a
start.
lot of people, it does. I mean,
Yeah, true.
yeah, here, that's pretty much it. If have a drink at a party or something, even if it's one drink, most of the sponsors will, have you start over. You've relapsed, and
Yeah,
so yeah. So I like the smart recovery aspect on it.
yeah,
That seems like it would be helpful for some people.
yeah.
So, I don't know if that would have been helpful for me, but, part of my thing is that I went to Alateen. And so I already had ideas of what sobriety was supposed to look like. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know if I could achieve it, but I knew, kind of what AA's version of it was. And
Yeah.
so, which is why I tried to go to, um, rational recovery or
Mm-hmm.
save ourselves or any of that stuff, which, did not exist in Boise at the time. So,
Yeah. Now Jackie says that there's not that Smart is nothing like 12-step recovery, and she also says that it's more like small group therapy. They don't use the concept of powerlessness, and that's
right.
and that's and that is true. And
Hmm.
like I say, I'm not like I've just after I did the training, I went to a couple of smart meetings, so I'm
Hmm.
like still not that familiar with it, but did
Yeah.
enjoy learning about it. And I'll tell you what, I do enjoy the smart meetings online.
Hmm.
The ones that I've gone to are huge,
Hmm.
and they're more like seminars.
Hmm.
They're probably not your typical smart meeting where you have a small group where you go around and share and so forth, but in touch base, whatever they do. But in they have these big seminars, and then the people that are present something, they give a presentation, and
Okay.
they've been interesting, the ones that I've attended, and the people were really nice. So I enjoy that, and it just kind
Hmm.
of gives you something to do if you're bored on a Friday evening or something. If you don't want to listen to a live stream, you can go to one of those smart meetings.
Right.
So anyway, Anchor says that they did some research into it, but there weren't any in the Philly area. I know, there aren't a lot of smart groups all around. We have a couple in Kansas City, and I think that they were really big in the VA system.
Yeah, yeah. I think a couple of people from our group did both SMART and VA, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
incorporated, as well as our group, all three into their ideas. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it was helpful to them.
But
So,
they've always had a strong presence online, and
hmm.
you can go to smartrecovery.org, I think, and then click on the link to their online meetings, and you have to register, and then they give you a password and everything, and you can get on there, and they have a forum for all the different topics and addictions and so forth, and then they
Hmm.
also have all the information for the Zoom meetings. But they've had online meetings way before COVID,
Hmm.
and they, unlike AA, the smart recovery area actually has everything centralized in one place where you can go and find your meetings, basically.
Oh,
So
well, cool.
yeah. So anyway, that's about that.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're going to bring us more information
I will
next
bring
week
you more
on
information.
all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Ed says he's always been told that those who are returning, they haven't lost everything. Don't look at it as completely starting over. That's what I try to tell people. A relapse would be, I would hate it. I mean, I have not relapsed. I'm very fortunate in that,
Mhm.
but I don't think that anybody should think that everything that they learned prior to their relapse has been lost.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen people really beat themselves up like, I did everything wrong. Now I'm back and I'm gonna do things different. I'm gonna do things right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. That's not the spirit of AA either. AA is about, we are sober only one day at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and this day is all we have,
Yeah.
and we do our best with that.
Yeah.
So, and that's a good segue into tonight's topic, I think, overcoming challenges in our recovery.
Yeah.
You know, Angela, what I'd like to do with this, everybody, is I'd like to just turn this into a conversation, and hopefully you can convey in the live chat or by calling us at our toll-free number about any challenges or difficulties or obstacles you had to overcome while you were getting sober. Um, for me, for example, my early years, in fact, I'd say my first 2 years were the most difficult time for me in my sobriety. And for me, Angela, I think what it was is I had never been able to build up any kind of security prior to coming to AA for the first time. So I never really achieved anything. Put it that way.
Right.
I never had any money. I never had a
Yeah.
house. I never,
Yeah.
so
You weren't coming to AA to get your life back. You didn't
no,
have one to
I
begin
never
with.
built anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I was.
Oh God. So it was really tough because I lost everything. But when I say I lost everything, it was like I lost nothing because I had
Right.
nothing. But still, it was there, so
Feelings don't always go with reality. So yeah,
right.
I'm totally following you.
So, it was like here I am. I'm I I'm scared. I got to stop drinking. I'm starting to go to these AA meetings. I've got a court date coming up where I might have to go to jail for a good long time. I don't have a job. I lost my apartment. I had to move in with my sister and brother-in-law. And with that comes a lot of crap that I had to deal with. I had to learn how to, first of all, I think the first thing I had to learn, Angela, was to not give in to shutting my brain down. I
Mm.
realized early on that one thing that alcohol did for me that I really liked is it gave me a way to shut my brain off.
Hmm.
And when in those very early days, when I would just sit around, I was terrified about going to jail, Angela. I was absolutely
Yeah.
terrified of it. I just didn't think I could make it. And I
Yeah, I don't
thought,
think you could either.
I don't think I wouldn't do well in jail. And the jail here was awful. They don't have it. They don't have it anymore. And you know what they called it? They
Mm.
called it the farm. They called it the
Oh,
farm because it was kind of outside of the city, I guess, you know. And
yeah.
I kind of pictured it as being a farm, but I
Hmm.
actually went there after I got sober, and it was just an awful place. And they
Yeah.
did awful things there. So and it's now
Oh,
closed down. I don't know what they do for the jail now, but anyway. So yeah, so I was kind of terrified of that, and there's all kinds of things that went on and over the years, but we can kind of get into that later. But I think it was that the bottom line for me is that I had those early basics that I needed to cover. I needed job, food, housing, freedom, that kind of stuff.
hmm.
So, what about you,
Yeah.
Angela? What comes to your mind as some of your early challenges, and how did you face them and deal with them?
Well, when I was thinking about it, my early recovery, yeah, I was in a spot where when I got here, I was living in a rented room in a house with four other people. And it was a situation where we all rented from the owner of the house, so we didn't have to depend on the other people who were living there to pay their rent, that kind of thing. So that was helpful. But it was pretty, down and out as far as, I had no savings. I was barely making ends meet. I think I was working at a temp job, and I had a really crappy car. It ran some of the time, but it was like a Saturn coupe with a muffler kit. And, and it was because, I got it because at the time, I could only get cars from people who were willing to, either work with me or, sell it to me at an insane interest rate or, just things like that. I didn't have a lot of choice, and I couldn't just be like, you know what, this is the kind of car I'd like to get and
Right.
go, get it. I just didn't have that kind of agency, also my health was really bad.
Mm.
I was thinking, I think in my first 4 years of recovery, I had at least two surgeries that I can remember. I feel
Hmm.
like there was a third one, but I can't remember what it is. But the first one was gallbladder surgery. I had to have my gallbladder removed. I got very, very sick. And in that case, my doctor, my surgeon, didn't want to do the surgery because I couldn't put down $1,000 retainer. But the emergency department said, if you don't, then she's so sick that she's likely to die, and then you'll
Oh
get
wow.
sued. So he did the surgery. And then the second one was I had to have a hysterectomy. Due to endometriosis, and so that's a pretty serious surgery,
Yeah.
and took a while to recover from. And so yeah, so I didn't start out with a lot
Mm-mm.
going for me. But I did have people in recovery helping me with both of those times. When I was scheduled to have a hysterectomy, we had a going away party for my uterus. And yeah, as far as I know, I think I'm the only person who's ever thrown a going away party for their uterus. But it was like all my AA friends and some of my friends from other areas. But my sponsor knew the person who makes costumes for Patch Adams. The doctor that they made a movie about him starring Robin Williams in the
Oh, okay.
80s, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so she also made a costume for Planned Parenthood that's a uterus. And,
Oh.
to help, I guess, teach
Hmm.
about, the body and stuff. And so she borrowed the uterus costume and she wore it. and we're at Idaho Pizza Company, which is, like this big, pizza place, and just at some tables put together, in the back, and she's wearing a uterus costume, and she sang me a song on her ukulele. So I have a person dressed in a uterus playing the ukulele, singing "Bye Bye Boom, Bye Bye
Oh my
Uterus."
God.
Yeah, hello pain freeness, that.
Uh,
And so it was pretty ridiculous, but really fun. And
that's nice.
one of my one of my friends, this tells you the kind of warped people I hung out with.
Mhm.
Brought a Tupperware container that had half a skinned pear in it, with some red Jello that wasn't completely set, and
Okay.
labeled it Angela's uterus.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so we had that prop there as
Uh-huh.
well. And as we left, I left it there because, what am I going to do with that?
Right.
But the staff there didn't know that. And so they come running out with this container and yelling, "You've left your uterus."
Oh,
And
how funny.
yeah, so it was a wonderful time. But yeah, so the health stuff, those were all challenges, but what got me through was the community,
Yeah.
the people that were in my circle. And like I said, it was a lot of recovery people, but it was also my friends that were just supportive of me, because everybody knew that I was in recovery. I was very much one of those people that would say it the first thing. It was something very important in my life. And
Mhm.
and so, yeah, so the friends that were there were all ones that were very supportive of my recovery, and so I think that helped me get through some of these obstacles.
Cool. We have a caller. I can't
All
believe it, but
right,
I think it's Fred. I can almost tell from the
let's
number. Let's
see.
see. I'm gonna guess. Is this Fred?
Hello, yeah.
Hey,
How you
Fred.
doing?
I'm doing good. You know what? I got your voicemail today, and of course, I only got it just before we started. So anyway, good to hear from you. What's going
Okay,
on?
well, maybe since you got it, you can get back to me on it later.
Okay.
But I'm really glad to hear the topic tonight, because I have a lot of pertinent information for the people who are struggling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What you got?
Just like your uh, 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 the way you're presenting
Mhm.
presenting the topic, I would like to say that the coping skills as a person in recovery are not very easy sometimes,
Mhm.
and for somebody to have a continuous sobriety for a lengthy period of time, they're not doing it on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I sponsored a lot of people, and my experience has been sometimes very, very good, and other times horrendous. And with that, I think of all the people that didn't make it. As you know, I'm a long-time person in recovery, or
Mhm.
considerably have a length of one day at a time.
Mhm.
When you put it together,
Yes. Yep.
uh, and I remember a friend of mine had about 12 years that I had worked with. Something happened. He went, and it was just horrible, because when you're away from how you drink and the death that alcohol does, and the things that the progression of the disease, how
Mhm.
it takes somebody's life.
Yeah.
It's so, if you witness that, or have witnessed that,
Yes.
you'll know what I'm
I
talking
do.
about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It is
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
And
Go ahead.
you you know the grief process and the coping skills are all the pertinent things that a lot of people don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
They they know how to love, but not really. They know how to uh, stay sober for 24 hours. But as soon as that tragic thing happens that they have no control over,
Yep.
you know, I always listen to somebody say this, and I thank God I haven't. Well, if there's a God, I thank Him,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I say that because that's what people say, but I don't really know.
Yeah.
And this is what I think about is that, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. That.
when
Go ahead.
when somebody's gone, they're not really gone because they live in your game playing mind that allows you to relate to the past.
Yeah.
That allows you to relate to the experience of somebody else's frailty
Mm-hmm.
that they couldn't handle sobriety.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, the relationship that we have as people in recovery is outstanding because experience, strength, and hope. Well, not always hope. You know, I don't know. A lot of experience and strength, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
can fortify the day of
Yeah.
the difficult time.
Yeah.
They always say you're never going to know when that first drink is going to be hit you or will be yours.
True.
So you have to safeguard yourself.
True.
And you know, if you or Angela were to pick up, you know, it would be so sad for all your listeners
Sure.
and for all your friends and your family
Yeah.
and your associates, because you wouldn't be the person who you are today.
Yeah.
You would go back to that person who you were, or you know, years ago when you were suffering in that inebriated state.
Yeah. If
And
my
it would
drinking,
be
if I
only
drank and my drinking was like it was or worse, I wouldn't even be able to do this.
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
well,
That's
Fred.
right. So you would never come back to
Yeah.
the realization of anything that you lived sober, because you wouldn't be able to get it.
No.
That's what a chronic alcoholic
Yeah. I wouldn't be
happens
able to do
when-
this. I would be
when
drunk
they
right
can't-
now.
when they can't stay sober.
Yeah.
That's why we have the love that we do for our fellows, and
Yeah.
you know the grief is so bad when you lose somebody to alcoholism.
Very much is.
How it upsets everybody and everything.
I think of it like a
And,
suicide.
you know, yeah, it's worse than suicide.
Yeah.
It's so selfish. It's so selfish, but there's no cure for that. You know, you might say, "Oh, I there's no cure for it. There's no way." You know, they have these implants now.
Mm-hmm.
You can get longevity implants to keep you sober.
Oh, that's cool.
But I
didn't know
don't
that.
think that they have that here in Virginia, in Richmond. There's a fellow who's a doctor who does that. But I don't necessarily think that's the way to go, because I white knuckled it years ago, and you know, I came to the realization for myself that the only way I was going to live is if I abstained from alcohol and
Mm-hmm.
mood altering substance or anything that would affect my life, in order to have a clear consciousness of self-realization that I can live in a human, dignified way
Yep.
without having to
Well, Fred, we have another
fall off the
caller,
wagon.
so we should probably take this guy,
Sure.
person. He's been hanging on for about 7 minutes, but thank you for calling. I really liked
Okay.
what you had to say, and I relate very, very well to it. So thank you, Fred.
Thanks,
And
Fred.
I'll
Have
be
a good
calling you
night.
back tomorrow. I'll give you a call tomorrow, Fred. Okay.
Okay, I'll look for that. Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
You
Bye-bye.
take good care now.
You too.
And you too, Angela.
You
And
too,
love
Fred.
both. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Love you too.
And our next caller is from area code 727. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good. This is Al from Florida.
Hey, Al.
Hi, Al.
First time calling in for sure. I have listened to the program a few times. Long time sober, atheist, alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
One reason SMART is in the VA program is because of the religious nature of AA.
Yeah.
That's plain and simple. That's why they don't want AA coming in, because it might offend other people.
Right. Well, and it's a federal program, so it's probably like the separation issue.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the reason. And my biggest challenge was naturally coming to AA. I can remember my first two meetings clearly. Meeting 1,000 or 2,000.
Yes, I hear you.
No, but the first two,
Mhm.
yeah. And that was some challenge. The main challenge, the first one, I was still in treatment in Cincinnati. I was from Kentucky and went across the river to Cincinnati for treatment. And the big thing was, as soon as I walked in, everybody was friendly. I'm going, wow, this is like a Star Wars war. This bar, this is wonderful. I'm having a great time. This is wonderful. So as soon as I sit down, they start with a prayer. And then I hear the God could and would. And I'm like, oh, man. Then it's the Christian prayer at the end, the Lord's Prayer. And I'm going, I couldn't wait to get back to the treatment center. And two people in my early sobriety saved me. One was a nurse who wasn't in the program. She said, look, you're going to be here for 3 more weeks. Why don't you just give it a try? So that saved me. So I went to another second meeting, huge Catholic high school meeting in Cincinnati, or at a high school, I should say. And one guy, the topic is God. And I'm going, oh, Christ, here we go. So I would have left, but my insurance would have canceled out on me, and I had to pay for the whole damn thing. But anyway, the guy comes up. He's on crutches. He's got half a leg. And he says, dog, D-O-G, God backwards. And I'm going, oh, I'm looking for the bouncer. I'm thinking, we're going to throw this guy out. So about a week later, I'm trying to be quick here. A week later, I'm at the clubhouse again, and this nice car comes up. This guy's got the guy that said that looked like a biker. He had a jacket on the whole bit. So here comes this guy, hair slicked back, suit and tie on. He'd been to the VA hospital. He pulled up in a handicap spot, but he had his artificial leg on there. And I asked him about it. He said, yeah, I left half of it in Vietnam on the battlefield. I told him my situation about the God stuff, and he said, don't ever let anybody run you out of AA. And I figured, well, okay, that makes sense. And he did the old bit with God's a word. Find another word. Real simple stuff. Those two people helped me overcome my biggest challenge, and that's religiosity and AA. So that's it.
Well, thank you for calling. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Al.
Yeah, Al, thank you. Thank you very much. Call again.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of, one of the things of going to meetings that helps me to kind of reset my perspective is hearing people who, have had things more difficult than I have. And so I can see how, talking to somebody or having somebody who had been in Vietnam and had an artificial leg and who said, don't let anyone run you out of AA, that would be inspiring, particularly early on. for me. There were a couple stories like that. And yeah, my dad died of alcoholism. I think I've shared before, and it is horrible to watch somebody. You know, I was there. I was holding his hand at his last moment, and it wasn't like some sort of, you know, beautiful movie thing where, you know, we share, you know, our last words with each other. And, you know, he was scared, he was trembling, he, you know, was in shock. He, I mean, he couldn't breathe. It was awful. And prior to that, he was projectile vomiting blood, you know. So alcoholism is a terrible thing to die of. And yeah, I like that it seems to be, at least in our community, that we're trying to be more open about different ways of getting sober. You know, the medically assisted treatment has really helped a couple of people that I know that were having problems with slips or relapse or you know, the whole thing, and I really wasn't sure if they were ever going to get it, but the medically assisted helped them, and there are still people in our area that, you know, don't think that that's a good thing. So I'm grateful I'm in a community that does, even if we're mostly online.
Yeah.
Because it would have been nice if my dad had that. He did have like an early one. What did they have in the 70s? I forget what it's called. He had tried that through the VA, and it just didn't work for him. So
Yeah, there's nothing worse. That's quite a story, Angela. That's something else to have to go through.
Yeah.
A couple people here have mentioned something about people going homeless in their sobriety.
Yeah.
You know, I can say that, yes, I didn't have a home, but I never had to live in the street. I'm really fortunate for that. But yes, after my first job in sobriety, I lost it. And what happened is, I don't know what happened, why this happened, but my last day at work, my sales manager was jumping across his desk wanting to beat me up because he was so mad at me for something. And so I left and I never came back. And so I didn't have a job. And so I'm back at square one, basically no job and no place to live. But immediately I'm taken in by an AA friend and I live in his house for a while. And then I get a job. And then I have other AA friends taking me around, introducing me to other AA people who rent rooms to people. And I eventually got an apartment in a very kind of interesting area of our city, the Northeast area, for those of you from Kansas City, the Northeast Kansas City. And so I lived there for 7 years, and I rented from a good friend of mine in AA. You know,
Nice.
it turned out great. But again, you know, it was a bad situation, but I relied completely on the AA community, and there were wonderful people. I went to their homes and they showed me the places that they would rent to alcoholics, you know, that didn't have a place to live. So it's an amazing support network, you know.
Yeah.
It truly is incredible. You know,
No,
what
that was one of my situations as well. When I moved out of that house, I was moving in with another guy from the house. He had bought a house. And so I was but his drinking was so bad that, you know, at first I thought I'd be okay, but just that first weekend there, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no place to go. And, you know, and I shared at a meeting that, yeah, I was stressed out. I had no idea what was going to happen. And one of the old timers came up to me and, you know, well, I'm looking forward to seeing you next time when you're going to tell me, you know, about what great thing happened to get you through this. And of course I was like, oh, screw you. But in my head, sure enough, you know, somebody from the meeting that I knew had an extra room in their place and rented it out to me. And so I was, you know, living with other sober alcoholics and, you know, just a roommate situation. So it worked out pretty well.
Joe M., we have to have you as a guest on this live stream sometime, because you are an interesting character.
Yeah.
He says that he says he never learned how to manage money, so he just never paid his bills and he lived in barns. This is the second reference he gave to barns. I think there was another episode where he said when he was like 14 or 15 years old, he slept in a barn. I think it was like the night before Christmas or something, because he was told that the animals would kneel down and pray, I guess. So Joe and
Uh,
Barnes, man, I'd
yeah,
love to.
we need to get you on to talk about the Barnes story.
Yeah,
So, and I'd say that I'm not surprised because I know, how much he loves herding dogs and stuff like that. That's herding, not hurting.
yes.
Herding, like border collies and Australian shepherds and stuff. So yeah, so I'd love to hear his story as well. We need to do that.
We'll schedule it, Joe, if you would do it for us. So
Yeah.
anyone can call in at 844-899-8278. 844-899-8278. So what else, Angela? What else have you been through?
Oh, geez. Like that's not enough. But yeah, no, it took me a lot longer, it seems like, than some of the people I sponsor to start getting my life,
Yeah.
together, to
Yeah.
learn how to manage money. So, I was
Yeah.
still, like up to, I don't know, 7 or 8 years sober before I could get a credit card again.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. So managing a bank account, and I learned that I could actually have it set so that when I wrote a check and stuff, that it couldn't overdraft. Like I didn't
Right.
know that I could do that,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that way, I couldn't, overdraft when I would, do that earlier, because I was always feeling like I had to make, decisions, even in recovery, that weren't easy, and was still impulsive, and I just never got the manual for
Mm-hmm.
life, and so some of these things took me a bit longer than some people to start to figure out, and so yeah, I had to
No,
learn
same
all of
way.
that in recovery, and and there was some resentment early on, I think. Well, I guess later too. That's it seemed like a lot of people I knew got it quicker, or
Yeah.
they had more help, or whatever, and so there was still some poor me's for a while,
Yeah.
um, and and I don't feel like I do that as much now. I get overwhelmed and frustrated sometimes, but I think I've been through so much in recovery that
Mm-hmm.
that I know I can. That if I,
Mm-hmm.
I want to, I have the ability. It's still not going to necessarily look the way I want it to, but the possibility is always there. And yeah, so it's yeah, that stupid phrase, that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It turns out to be true in my
Yeah.
case. And when I work with people who are going through really tough stuff, I try to talk about that as well, that as they get through this and learn how to get through this, and stay sober through it, that they're going to be a great resource to somebody in the future who is having a tough time, and needs to know how to get through this, or at least know somebody that has been through the similar thing and stayed sober.
Mm-hmm.
Because when some of these things hit us, it feels like you're the only one that's ever had to deal with this. And so yeah, so having other people share in meetings real stuff, like having to get a hysterectomy, or having to couch surf, or
Right.
learning to manage money, all of that stuff is I think important, and I think that's the real stuff in AA
It
that
is.
actually it's what drew me in, was people talking about the real things
Yeah.
of how to adult,
Yeah.
and that's a big thing for me, is
Yeah.
how to adult.
Absolutely, and it was for me too. And whenever somebody would help me in that way, and come down to my level, it just meant everything to me. Because when I'd go to these meetings, and I take myself back in time now, so I'm the young guy, and all these older people, and they all seem to have nice jobs, and they're doing just fine, and they have families and all this
Right.
stuff.
They own houses,
Yeah,
and,
they have
and
houses,
the
and
kind of car they got to go pick it out,
yeah.
even the color. Yeah.
Right. So, it was like, but fortunately the home group that I went to, there was kind of a core group of us that were in our 20s and so forth. And we did kind of hang together, and we could kind of understand that. But every once in a while, yes, I'd have somebody who would kind of inspire me with a story. Um, Jackie mentioned something about paranoia, being so full of paranoia, but also craziness and joy. She says about her early days. So,
Yeah, that kind of reminded me of another thing that's difficult in early sobriety is, is learning to negotiate, even friendships,
yeah.
because a lot of the things that they talk about is, stay in the herd and
Mm,
stuff, but sometimes the herd's really sick,
yeah.
and so there was, one meeting house that I would go to regularly, and I remember early on I would go to the midnight meeting because it was all smoky. It was when you could smoke inside, and it was dark because it was like supposed to be a candlelit meeting,
Yeah.
but it was really just a people smoking in the dark meeting. And I went to it because it was a bunch of people that were not people I would normally hang out with, and it kind of felt like going to the bar to me. It was like the
Mm-hmm.
same atmosphere almost, only it was sober and not a
Yeah.
bar. And so I'd go there, but that meeting house, several of the people that got sober about the same time as me, there was a lot of drama and a lot of
Mm,
crazy stuff that would
yes.
happen, and feelings would get hurt,
Yeah.
and then there'd be little cliques and stuff,
Right.
and I could always navigate that because I wasn't like in it. That wasn't my home group, and
Mm-hmm.
so I could just kind of watch, but people went out because of some of that stuff, and that was really an interesting process to see how people did or didn't navigate early sobriety with making friends and being parts of groups, and trying to figure out who you are through an organization, basically,
Mm-hmm.
so
It's interesting you mentioned that place because I went to a place kind of similar to that. It was an AA group called Northeast Johnson County, and I would go to the 10 o'clock meetings, and
mm-hmm,
the 10 o'clock meetings were full of young people, and
mm-hmm,
me being one of them, and what was neat about those meetings is it was kind of, well, I'll put it this way, there was some good and bad about it because, like you said,
right,
there was a lot of drama, right?
mm-hmm,
But those meetings had a lot more emotion. I mean, people come in
mm-hmm,
yelling and screaming and crying
right,
or whatever,
yeah,
and then they'd have relationships with each other, and
right, yeah,
it was kind of a different kind of experience from the other group that I was going to, where people were older and blah 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 and asking me
yeah.
to read the big book, whereas at the younger people's group we were just kind of sitting around, we have a topic, and then somebody go on. Somebody,
Craziness, and then somebody throw a mug across the room,
yeah.
and then somebody bring in somebody who had just relapsed, and the
Yeah.
ambulance would have to come because they were detoxing,
Jesus.
and yeah, I mean it was quite the place,
Hmm.
and so it was interesting to watch
Yeah.
and see. I mean, I'm glad that I wasn't taken in. I had my share of those kinds of problems.
Hmm.
I've mentioned before that I had to learn how to use nonviolent communication.
Oh yes, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because a friend had said something about, my ex, who was
that's
also her
funny.
friend that they met, first. And so I thought she was saying he, was more important because, and was going to, write this whole thing on using I statements, though, on how she's a horrible person and hurt
Hmm.
my feelings, and, blah, blah, blah. But I did talk to my sponsor, and she suggested that, I read this before I send the email, and I did. And so it instead of that, instead of sending the strongly worded email, which I am really good at.
Are you good at that?
Oh, I am so good at strongly worded emails. Yeah. Instead, I actually sat down with her and said, when you said blah blah blah, what I heard was, that this relationship with him is more important than our relationship. Is that what you intended? And of course, she was like, no, that's not what I was saying at all, or what I think at all. And so yeah, so then our relationship is mended and fine. I could have blown it up with my I statements, but yeah, it was something that was really valuable to me, and I still have to do that sometimes. I haven't had to as much, but during this pandemic, I had a situation with a friend where I hurt their feelings, and I didn't intend to. And so I had to own up to that, and that, okay, yeah, I can see how I did assume this and how that would be hurtful. And I'm sorry. And I will, try to be more skillful in the future regarding this area.
Yeah. Robert says that he had a lot of 10 o'clock p.m. meetings in the Chicago area. I bet you did. And Joe wants to know if he went to Quad A meetings over there in Chicagoland. I used to go up there to Chicagoland, Schaumburg, Illinois. Bobbert. I used to go up there about once a year, I guess. But the last time I was there was just before COVID. I'll probably go back again after COVID. That's where the company I work for is located, and it's kind of a. So that you get to fly into Chicago, and then they immediately whisk you out to the suburbs, so you don't get to see anything really interesting. But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah, I haven't actually been to too many meetings outside of my area.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Idaho is it's kind of hard to get to places.
Yeah, when you're in Idaho, and
it's
you're
like
in Boise, you're pretty much there.
5 hours to get to Salt Lake, and about 7 to get to Portland. So it's not the easiest thing to be able to travel to different meetings. But yeah, I'm hoping after I'm able to travel again when I have the vaccine, that I have so many places I would love to visit and meet all these wonderful people that we've been interacting with in this last year. It's been a weird year, but it's been a good experience as far as my recovery and mental health. So I'm sorry if the rest of you are suffering, but it's been good for me. So
that's good,
that's what's important. No.
I think I've been doing okay with all of this. I get worn out sometimes though, about all this, just not really seeing much of the world except through the computer screen. And, it's just, I should really just take a drive somewhere. I haven't even done that. I haven't even driven outside the city limits or anything. Oh, I know I did once. I went out to Leavenworth, Kansas, not Leavenworth, but Tonganoxie, Kansas. That was a lot of fun.
Wow, you are wild. Yeah.
Oh, New York City meetings. New York City late night meetings are always an adventure. I can't imagine going to them regularly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Our they stopped doing the midnight meeting a few years ago, but they've been doing 10 p.m. meetings, the whole time as well. So a lot of people, when I was younger in sobriety, would go at the 10 p.m. and then stay for the midnight, and that kind of a thing. And I have one sponsee that the 10 p.m. was her home group, and so like every year I would still have to go to a 10 p.m. meeting for her when she'd get her anniversary trip type thing, and it the last few years it had been hard because I'm like, 10 p.m. you want me to stay up till 10, or past 10, I have to like go someplace at 10 p.m. And so that's when I knew I was aging. Because that's the thing they don't tell you early on in recovery, is that you can stay sober one day at a time, but you will still age.
That's true.
It's been an interesting experience.
That's funny that so many people seem to relate to 10 o'clock meetings as being a little bit different.
Yeah. I think they just draw a different crowd, and it probably depends on your age and or maturity level when you get sober, because not everybody there were young people. They were a big variety of people, but all at kind of the same maturity level, which isn't high.
Yeah, I hear you. Let's see, what else now? So going through any challenges that I might have faced outside of the basics that I told you about. Once I got to the point where my basics were covered, I've been sober for a while, and Fred mentioned this, and I know I've talked about it in another podcast before, but one of the greatest challenges that I had to face was dealing with grief in sobriety. And for me, it happened after 10 years of sobriety, and when my father died, and it was totally unexpected, and it threw me for a loop. And I remember going into this, and forgive me because I'm just repeating a story that I've told on it before, but I remember going into this thinking that I'm going to be okay because I've got this 10 years of
Mhm.
recovery in AA, and I know how to deal with things, blah, blah,
And you
blah.
have a community and,
Right. I thought
all
everything's going to
that
be
kind of
fine.
stuff. Yeah.
I was going to be okay. And you know what? I just was crazy. I was crazy. And, it was a really weird time. I mean, I stayed sober
Hmm.
and I had friends that would support me and help me and talk to me and everything, but I was a basket case.
Hmm.
And I guess what I learned from that, when I go through grief again, it'll be a different experience, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
I couldn't control it. Like you can't control grief. It just comes over you like waves
Yeah,
and
I think
waves.
that's what I was going to say is that I imagine particularly for, losing somebody close to you that
Hmm.
it's it may feel more difficult because it's the lack of control, and
Yeah.
you've now had a bit of control in your life. You've learned how to do some
Yep.
things, and then this isn't something, and the feelings that come up in grief are not controllable because
Yep.
they come from a different part of you, and so it
And
can be
I've seen
scary.
people from of various ages losing loved ones, and their decision making isn't really great that first
Hmm.
year. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and it's and there's no way around trying to guide them into the right way to you just got to go
Yeah.
through it. It's just a really difficult time, but that was difficult, but I made it through. And one thing that really helped me was somebody else who had lost both of their parents and at a young age, fairly young,
Hmm.
and we kind of bonded, and he became my sponsor, and he was a good friend, and it helped out a great deal. And I talked to him a lot, and he was just really understanding and kind, and I got through it. I made it. So it was a tough time though, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Jackie says that mine was when my 51-year-old sister got leukemia. Oh God. I was her sole caretaker for 10 months and had young kids of my own. I couldn't believe it when she died. That's just
Oh,
heartbreaking. Then a year later, my brother died. And that same year, my mother died. That would be really tough, Jackie. I can't,
yeah.
those kind of things are just, that you can stay sober through it. And Jackie did, and it's just, but sometimes Jackie got professional help. She said she got, I got professional help and found out who in the program really accepted me for who I was at my worst. Boy, that's a good
Right.
point. That's such a good point too. Because, people get to know you in meetings as being having your life together in a certain way or whatever, and talking and maybe helping people and so forth. But then all of a sudden something happens in your life that just knocks the wind out of you,
Right.
and you're not the same person. And
No.
some people will recognize that and maybe come in there with some compassion and try to help, but other people
Mhm.
are like, whoa, what's wrong with this guy? He's some
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of a different, it changes the dynamics of your relationships with people.
Right.
um,
Definitely.
Joe says college for some folk. My ex-sponsee was heading to California to surrender to courts and most likely go to prison. But just before we left, the judge dismissed all cases on him after he was 5 years sober, I guess is what he's going to
Wow.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Surrendering
cool.
yourself to the court.
Yep. We know many people who've
I've
needed to
done
do
that.
things like that. Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Which was my story was about that, and my stories are never that dramatic, but I can always make them dramatic. But so
They're
so
all dramatic
after
in our own mind. I mean, anything
oh
that
yeah,
happens to us is
so after
dramatic.
I've been sober, I don't know what, 2 months maybe, yeah, I think maybe 2 months, whatever, and I had all these tickets, and I had court dates, and I
Hmm.
had escaped bail or something, and bondsman was after me, and I was just walking around so paranoid. Every time I would see a cop car or something, I was just freaking out.
Well, is
So
it paranoid if you really have a reason to
it's
be
not. It's
scared,
not paranoid. They
Yeah,
were
because I
looking
mean,
for me.
it's like they
They were
were looking for you,
people
John.
were looking for me. So
You had a reason.
so anyway, I turned myself into the bondsman,
Yeah.
and I said, "Here I am." Okay, and they were happy to see me, and they took me to jail. But
Right.
I called someone from AA, and he said, "Okay, you stay in jail, and I'll see you the next day." And he came over. He was a lawyer, and he
Mhm.
talked to the judge for me and got me a good deal. But yeah, that was kind of a weird thing, you know. Oh yeah, the first thing he told me is, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have turned yourself in." But I thought I was doing the right thing.
Yeah. And
But
so then you learned that you should maybe ask people before you
right,
follow through
right,
on your brilliant idea.
right.
Yeah, that's what I had to learn too. Is my sponsor had told me that she had requested or suggested that I call her before I break up with somebody if I'm in a relationship or before I quit a job, and both of those things were helpful. Well, I don't know that I had relationships,
Oh,
but the job thing was very helpful.
David Allen Coe. Oh my God, you bring back memories, Anchor. David Allen Coe. Yeah, that's a real hardcore. Do you know who Dave Allen Coe is, Angela?
I don't.
Oh my God, that's hardcore country,
Mm.
hardcore. And he's like, you know, it's something else. But
Oh, like country music?
yes, it's like you don't have to call me. I can't remember. I'll think of the song in a little bit. But I used to sing
Okay.
his songs all the time in bars, and then a fight would break out. Okay, it is
That's
time.
surprising.
Oh, you don't have to call me. I can't remember the name of the song. I can't remember how the song goes. Anyway, that's okay. Everybody, we've been doing this for an hour now. It's been nice chatting with you all, and
Yeah.
we're going to be back again next Friday for another live stream. We should probably have a guest, Joe.
Well,
M.
no, you're doing your thing next week.
Oh yeah, that's
So
right. I'm going to
yeah,
be doing
so
that
we need
thing.
to we need to hear what
Okay.
all the up and coming new techniques and information is
Okay.
and peer recovery.
Yeah.
And
can do
then the
that.
next week we should do Joe.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll do that. We'll talk about the peer recovery support thing here in
Yeah,
Missouri.
look at us like trying to organize stuff ahead of time.
Yeah. Oh,
Whoa, we're growing
I
in
know.
recovery, John. We're growing in recovery.
Yeah, Joe's
Thanks to
story
the
sounds
people
really interesting.
in our live stream. Thanks for
Joe,
helping us grow.
yes. Okay, so now I'm going to play some music to say goodbye. Here we go. Oops. Oops.
Please not disco.
Yeah.
Unusual.
And that's it. That's another episode of AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week for another live stream. And also some podcast episodes will be posted here real soon. I'll get a new one posted out on Sunday, and it will be, is it not Brendan? I can't remember who it is, but it'll be a good one. Y'all take care. We'll be back again real soon. Bye-bye.